In short, we essentially see brand campaigns as a necessary evil. We don't really want to run them, but at the same time, we don't want to lose business to competitors.
This is the B2B Performance Marketing Podcast by Webmarketer, here to help you make the right moves with your B2B advertising. No spin, no smoke and mirrors, just honest insights from the advertising frontline.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Maelien Holton.
And I'm Louis Holton Davis.
Now, if you ask 10 different marketers their opinion on brand search, then you'd probably get about 12 different opinions, which makes it quite a tricky one to talk about. But today we thought we'd tackle it head on. Should you run branded keywords in a paid search campaign? And if so, how much budget should it have? And how much credit should it get for driving inquiries? And the reality, as usual, is that it depends. But we wanted to arm you with as much information as possible so that you could make an informed decision.
So let's start by defining a brand keyword. It's basically a search that included your business's name. So as an example, let's pretend you're running an accountancy business, and let's also pretend that it's called something like Numerico Accountants. If someone searched for something like accountants or accountants near me, that would be unbranded. But as soon as someone added Numerico into the equation, so Numerico Accountants, now that becomes brand search. And likewise, if someone typed your competitor's brand name into search, then that would be competitor search.
Now, it's worth noting that a high number of brand searches is usually a really good sign that paid search is going to work really well for you. And that's because it's a proxy for high affinity and brand awareness in the market. The reality is that it's usually the other channels outside of paid search that are driving brand search volume. So things like word of mouth, YouTube, social, and other types of advertising is where people hear about your brand first, and then afterwards they go to Google and search for you by name. With this in mind, growth in brand search is a really good signal that your brand or demand gen activities are actually working.
It's a really important point to remember that brand search happens as a result of something else happening. Like Miley just said, people can hear about your brand somewhere, type that into Google, and that compounds over time as the brand grows. But also, if a piece of social content goes viral or an influencer marketing campaign suddenly takes off, you're going to see a big and sudden surge in brand searches in that instance too. And actually, the brand awareness and affinity and the intent is different in those two scenarios as well. One is more likely to be a longer term relationship, more affinity and more awareness. And the other one is a sudden discovery, like they've probably just heard about you for the first time. And because of this, for any social post going viral or influencer marketing campaigns taking off, you actually want to double down on brand keywords as part of an acquisition campaign. Because that brand search is going to die back down just as quickly as it exploded. And you're going to want to make sure that you take full advantage of turning it into traffic. Just because while that opportunity is there, you want to try and generate as many inquiries as possible.
But thinking about it more generally, let's talk about whether you should run branded keywords in your paid search campaign. We always get asked, if people are already searching for our brand, isn't a brand campaign pointless, since they are going to come to us anyway? And in an ideal world, I'd say yes, but it's not an ideal world and competitors exist. And it's become more and more popular for businesses to target competitors in their paid search. And if competitor campaigns are becoming more common, then it's more likely that your brand is going to be one of those competitors targeted. So by running a brand search campaign, you're blocking off a potential slot your competitors could have on your brand name. And you're also reducing the risk of them stealing a potential customer from you.
So we'd always advocate for using brand search as a defensive measure, as long as it was done intentionally. And by intentionally, I mean a couple of things specifically. But the first thing that I mean about being intentional is that you have to exclude brand searches from Performance Max. If you don't do this, it will go to town on your brand search terms. And actually, you'll end up with every Performance Max campaign being a brand search campaign by accident. And on that note of excluding brand search terms, we worked with a SaaS company where one of their paid search campaigns was performing brilliantly, a much lower cost per demo than any other campaign in their mix. But actually, when we explored a little bit deeper and we looked at the search terms, actually 95% of the demos being booked were from brand search terms. And so that just goes to show how important it is to negative brand search terms out from any campaigns that actually aren't brand search campaigns. So this was actually a brand search campaign in disguise. And it just goes to show how important it is to exclude brand search terms from any campaigns that you don't want them creeping into. Now, the other really big advantage from a defensive standpoint is what you can get from the Auction Insights report. Because if you filter into your brand search campaign specifically, you know that every competitor listed in the report is bidding on your brand search, and you can also see how aggressively they're doing it too.
So we're going to talk about how much budget you should have for a brand campaign very shortly, but first we're going to talk about how it fits in the performance mix in the first place. So as a marketer, can you claim inquiries that came from brand search campaigns as ones that you've generated? The honest answer is not really. A good proportion of those brand searches will have been activated from marketing originally, but did they come from the brand campaign itself? Probably not. So you can't conscientiously claim brand inquiries as net new, but you should be running brand campaigns. So how do you report on this? The main thing is clarity. So it's really important to note what came from brand campaigns versus what came from the other campaigns, and how that affects your overall cost per conversion. It's also really important that your conversion attribution settings aren't set to last click. This way, brand isn't going to take all the credit for inquiries that were assisted by other campaigns.
Which leads us really nicely into talking about how much we should be spending on brand search. In my mind, which is from an agency perspective, it should be as little as possible. I always want the bulk of inquiries to be coming from non-brand search so that there's a net benefit of working with us. Basically, so that most of the inquiries that come in aren't ones that would have come in anyway, and we can have much better discussions when we're talking about the CRM and the pipeline. But there are a number of schools of thought here, especially if you're running your ads in-house. So you might want to keep tabs on your Auction Insight report just to make sure that your impression share on your own brand searches are higher than your competitors. Basically making sure that your competitors aren't securing more ad impressions on your brand searches than you are yourself. Now, this approach would most likely be coupled with a target impression share bid strategy. And this is probably the most defensive strategy you could take from a brand search perspective. The alternative being maximize conversions or target CPA, where you're basically telling Google, if this person is likely to inquire anyway, we want to secure them and not let them go to a competitor.
In short, we essentially see brand campaigns as a necessary evil. We don't really want to run them, but at the same time, we don't want to lose business to competitors. The main thing is that we understand that a brand campaign is the end point for a bunch of other things, and we have to understand that when we're looking at the data. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a follow and leave us a review. It really helps us out. And if you've got a focus for 2026 that you'd like us to cover, head to webmarketeruk.com/topic and put it forwards for a future episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.